please take a seat. That's fine. You can sit there. Yeah, Andres, you sit here. And Clotaire, you sit there. Okay. So good afternoon, everyone. I'm Natalie Nichols, and I lead our international work here at the RSA. And I'm delighted to welcome you to today's lunchtime talk. Just before we begin, a few housekeeping rules. Could you please make sure that all your mobile phones are switched off? We are filming today, and there is live audio. So welcome to all of those that are listening and watching online. And for those of you that would like to tweet during the talk, the hashtag is #RSAMoveUp, if you want to get involved in our discussions on Twitter. It's my really great pleasure to introduce this afternoon's guest speakers, Dr. Clotaire Rapaille and Dr. Andrés Roemer. Dr. Rapaille is a marketing expert and CEO and founder of Archetype Discoveries Worldwide. He's written over 14 books, and most recently, a book called The Culture Code, which has been translated into 12 languages. Dr. Andrés Roemer is a journalist, diplomat, entrepreneur, and academic with a PhD from Berkeley, studies from Harvard, and also a Fulbright scholar. He's written over 18 books on a diverse topics, including economics, happiness, art, and crime, and is CEO and co-founder of the Festival of Brilliant Ideas, Ciudad de las Ideas, in Mexico. Clotaire and Andrés are here to outline today the relationship between culture and biology, and how that translates into how we understand progress of cultures and nations. We're delighted that you're able to join us here at the RSA. So without further ado, let's get straight to it. Please join me in welcoming Clotaire Rapaille and Andrés Roemer.
Something is happening for me here today, actually yesterday or the last 2 days, very important. I was born during the war, 74 years ago. And I have experienced what some of you maybe have experienced. I was born in Paris. My father was a prisoner, my grandfather was a prisoner, and everything around me was down, not up, down, right? And at the time, as a little boy, it was difficult to have a dream. Difficult to have a dream because everything was, in such a destruction. But my mother always told me, whatever you want to do, you will always succeed. Whatever you want to do, you will always go back up. And that has been an imprint for me, very, very powerful. And I was at the very beginning, I said, well, this is my mission. This is my higher purpose. I want to help people to keep going up. Now, when I say up, I don't mean more money or more power. It doesn't matter what it is for you to be up. But when you get up in the morning, you don't get down. When you are in an hospital and you have a disease, the first thing we ask you to do is get up and go to the bathroom. Go up and walk outside and enjoy the fresh air. So it has different meaning for different people. Now, of course, my first experience as a little boy was that I didn't know exactly, but it looked like different tribes in this world. The German were the kind of a tribe, okay. The French were another tribe, okay. Then the British, and then maybe the Canadian, and Australian. So I said, these people are different. Then one day another tribe arrived, the Americans. Oh, wow, who are these guys? I love the Jeep. Oh, the Jeep was my toy. That was my first imprint. I wanted to have a Jeep. That was, for me, that was my goal. And so the story for me was why the German behave this way, why the French behave this way, why the British this way. Why is that? And I didn't know, of course. I was too little. But then I dedicate my life to try to understand how do you become French, American, English, German? What makes you suddenly feel resonate to this kind of dimension there? And then I start spending my whole life traveling all the world, trying to understand what makes the Japanese be Japanese, the Chinese, the Brazilian, and I love it. It's a passion. It's absolutely a passion. Now, what is quite interesting for me is my mission, my higher purpose, is awareness. You do whatever you want, but I want you to be aware of what are the forces that make you do what you want. So I'm an American today. I'm very happy to be an American. But I was born in Paris during the war, and I still have many friends in France. What do? Nothing. Why? Because they think. Oh, yeah, the French think. I think, therefore I am. Not I do, therefore I am. You say, no. I think, therefore I am. So le penseur de Rodin, the thinker, right? And so, they think, and then after that, that's enough. They just think. And okay, so what else? Well, let's make a new law to keep people down. It's illegal to work more than 35 hours a week. Illegal to work. What? Yeah. I thought they were trying to help people to get a job, to work, to be happy, to move up. No. There is even some guy that say you cannot check your email after 6 o'clock. It's illegal. Oh, they didn't pass the law, but they're moving it. So why is that? Because there is something in the French collective unconscious. Now, not all the French are like this, of course. No, all the good ones are in London, by the way. So you see, I'm not generalizing, but there is a tendency not to do something like this. This is perceived as being bad. I love cars, and I have several cars. All my cars have German engines. Why? Because look at all the BMW you have in London. They're great cars. So you see, again, each culture somewhere has something to bring to the rest of the world. So the higher purpose of this book is to say, well, if you want to go up, which means doesn't matter the meaning of going up, like getting up in the morning or being up to what you want to do or be yourself. You have to understand that there are in the world different possibilities. It's a bad joke, and maybe you're not going to like it, but if you want to go down, move to Venezuela. Fine. But if you want to suddenly live in a very clean environment, go to Singapore. How come Singapore has only 1.9% unemployment? 1.9. When there is, 25 in Spain and 20 in France? So you see, what are the differences? And there are some reasons for that sometimes we don't understand. And so it's very important for the people that are decision makers to understand that making a decision this way might not help the people to be able to move up. I believe that I start with nothing during the war, and I can move up. My mother told me you can always do it. So why can't we tell our children, the young people, you can do it? Yes, you can. You can do it. You can move up. You can go. But you might have to make a choice. Again, it might be a bad joke, but if you want to be in a safe place to put your money, you go in Switzerland, right? But if you want to have fun, I'm not sure you want to go to Switzerland. But you might want to go to Italy. Oh, they're great. The parties are great. But don't put your money over there. No. So you see, you have some choices to make, and the planet is open. You can go, and it doesn't require money. You can just take your backpack. The first time I went to Italy, I was hitchhiking. I didn't have any money, so you can do it. You see, now one of the key elements is that we have three brains, and the theme of the book is that cultures have three brains. All right. So when you're too much in the cortex, too intellectual, you make all the mistakes your pollsters have made with the last elections. Why they made a mistake? They believe what people say. Oh. What a mistake. I never believe what people say. Second, they believe in the internet. Oh, I've done the code for the internet. It's the best place to lie. So if you believe what they say when they are in the best place to lie, how can you get any result with that? Okay, they say it's cheaper to do the polls through the internet. Yeah, but who cares? So that is a key element. If you are just on the cortex, if you just think, this is not what moves people. I've done a lot of work with children, and mothers will tell me, what kind of book should I read to make sure that I raise my children the right way? I say, none. Don't read any book. Just follow your gut feeling. Mothers know best. We know that this is a cliche, but this is true. So we believe that there is a second brain, which is a limbic, which is emotional, right? Now, the emotional brain is very interesting because, again, that might be a little provocative, but it has been invented by women. Why? First of all, the brain functions with delay. Men are into now. I want it now. I want it now. Yeah. Women say, no, I need to know you better. Know me better? Why? What for? I'm ready. No. No, not now, not now. Oh, okay. So, all right, and then they say, you need to love me. Love? Yeah, yeah. Okay, I love you. Yeah. But what do you want? You want to satisfy your reptilian need, which is sex. That's why we're all here. That's why there's, 7, 8 billion people on the planet. Don't tell me it doesn't work. You know? So, it works, right? So, but then there are different levels. So if you don't get the reptilian, then this is the end of the culture. And many cultures that are too dominant at the intellectual might be good. They get great ideas. They don't do anything with these ideas. That's a problem, you see. The culture, for example, the Singapore culture, and I have a lot of respect for Lee Kuan Yew that just died, they had nothing. They started in 1965 with nothing, no land, no gas, no oil, nothing. And one word created a whole culture. One word. And the word is clean. We have to be clean. We have to be clean. Clean yourself, be clean, clean the house, clean the street, everything clean. You know, today you're not allowed to chew gum in Singapore, right? But the work we have done recently in Singapore, young women would say, yes, I cannot chew gum, but I can go back home at 2 o'clock in the morning and there is absolutely no danger. So what is the trade-off? Would you rather chew gum? You see, so that's very, very, so clean. And then around clean, you say, now you have to be educated. You have to learn how to be clean. And then after that, you need to have discipline. And then after that, you know, the kiasu that they say in Singapore, which is part of the culture, you have to work hard. You have to make it. You have to be, so you do not care if you're not demanding. You see, this is something that some cultures don't understand. The nanny state, the baby state, which will protect everybody, but we're not demanding for them to be up to what we expect for them, then it's a disaster. But when we are caring, we are demanding, and demanding, we are caring. And so it's quite interesting to go around the world to look at some cultures that applied some of these principles that respect what we call the reptilian brain. And when you respect the reptilian brain, you see that this culture are moving up. Huh? So now, one of the questions people ask me is, okay, how do you do to try to change a culture? Very difficult, very difficult. But you might. Of course, you might want to try to change it, but it takes sometimes centuries to be able to change a culture, right? What is the other solution? Vote with your feet. I know a lot of people hate me when I say that, yeah. But you know, I love the French culture, the one for the 18th century, great culture. But the French people today, they inherit something they don't deserve. Sorry to say that. So that's a great culture, but they didn't make it. So I vote with my feet, and I moved to America because everything I wanted to do was possible suddenly, you see. So you can move with your feet. By the way, some of the French people moving to come to London, but you know, you might want to do the same, whatever you want. And now what we can do because of the world today, you can go in different parts of the world for different elements of your life. You don't have to be stuck in one place. So I just want to tell you that my best wish for all of you is whatever your nationality, your culture, your age, your gender, you can move up all the time until the very end. All right, thank you.
First of all, thank you very much. For me, it's really an honor to be at RSA. And thank you for your timing for being here. I have had an obsession for the last probably 25 years. And the question is, how can I really make public policies that work? And I studied law, I studied economics, and I became aware with some fellows that we were doing things wrong. This big question that what makes a country to move up, it's not new. You should start reading Adam Smith and many other people many, many years ago. And the answers have been pretty interesting in many ways. Some people could tell you, well, it's related with the weather. Peoples that are in the northern part of the hemisphere are much more richer than the southern part. Or some people have had said it has to do with ethnicity, or if you're close to the ocean, or it has to do with institutions, whatever. Even some people have said it has to do probably with colonialism or with germs or with technology or with innovation. And all those things in a way could be true. There are strongly correlations in some cases. But we're missing a point. If we weren't, we wouldn't have the problems that we have today. Some countries are moving up pretty quickly and others are not doing it so well. So of the 157 countries that we have in the world, I evaluate the 20 best of them and the 20 worst of them. And they say, well, what do they have in common? And when do they have the same? It has to do with the religion. It has to do because some have common law system or civil law system. Do they have, what's really happening? And it's a very complicated question. But let me share with you at what conclusion we arrived based on few examples. And I would love to leave you here with a very important point. We haven't done the correct thing because we haven't understand very well who we are. And if you try to do a policy for an assumption of a person that it's different what he or she is, don't expect different results. I mean, it won't work. Economists in the last century have been thinking that we're rational. Okay, today, evolutionary psychology and bounded and behavioral economics have told you, well, we're a little bit irrational and sometimes we're not so rational as we thought. But however, in a way, we can predict things and we evaluate cost-benefit analysis. Lawyers that actually have also been taken into consideration when they make law, what kind of law for what kind of people, have thought, well, people are very reasonable. Are we really reasonable? Probably sometimes, probably not. The worst problem is that the assumption that we take of who we are, it's extremely important to really make good public policies. Let me share with you 3 little examples. When I was Vice Minister of Culture in Mexico, we have a project. We have to motivate children to read. So we made an experiment there. We put a group of people, of children, and we told them, you know, it's very important for you to read because you will fly to other stories, you will know other worlds, you will invest in you will have a very interesting talkings, chats, you will meet people through the books, and you will become a very powerful person probably. Then we put another group of people and we told them, hey, your heroes, your celebrities, they read. So we started doing what Spain did. This was in Mexico. We were putting like the soccer players and the artists reading, and in all our promotions and advertisements, the kids could be able to watch their celebrities reading. And to the other group, we just told them it's forbidden to read. You cannot touch a book, okay? It's like the marshmallow experiment, but you cannot touch them, but the books were there. To the children that would try to explain them that it was very helpful and etc., didn't work. That's the cortex in a way. For the other middle part of the group, there was really a debate because they didn't believe that the goalkeeper of Mexico, Jorge Campos, actually reads a book. He said, I don't believe it. He doesn't have the faith, no. And actually, when you listen to him talk, you will never believe it. It's like, there's something wrong. And when we forbid the books, everybody were touching and reading the books. So, well, that was an example that I want to share with you, but let me share with you 2 very quickly other examples. I was principal at Booz Allen and Hamilton, a very important consulting firm, and I was working with Guido Belsazo, a very important doctor in Mexico, who was trying to help us to make that people stop smoking, but we were talking about teenagers. So again, we did an experiment. For some of them, we explained them, you know, if you smoke, I'm sorry if you don't understand very well my English. I don't even understand my English. I'm sorry if you understand, just raise your hand. But we were with these people and we told them to a group of teenagers, if you smoke, this is what will happen to you in the long run. You will have cancer. See the photographs. Your teeth will be terrible. Your lungs, I mean, really, it's terrible. Your health, you will die. It's not the quantity, it's the quality of life that you will have. And we explained them. Also, we tried to make experiments increasing the prices of the tobacco with taxes, and we didn't allow them to smoke in many different areas. The second group, we told them, you know, it's not popular to smoke. You won't be able to really find the princess or the prince of your life. You are not popular, your mouth, People, it's not cool anymore. That's what happened in the United States. They did that study. And actually, from 50 million people in the United States now, there are only 30 million people smoking because it's not popular. And to other group of teenagers that they were just starting, we told them, you know, there is a new research that have found that if you smoke, I hope I pronounce well this word in English, you will become impotent. You will never have an erection. What? Yes, in 2 months, you smoke, no way. Okay, you can understand. Our brain, the long run, what does that mean? Cancer to me, it would happen to other people, but never to me. Again, the study showed that we talked to the reptilian. And we understood that in that particular case, the teenagers that were afraid of not having sex anymore next week, they didn't touch a cigarette. And I can keep giving you examples like this. Now I am Consul General of Mexico in San Francisco and in Hawaii, and one of my biggest concerns is the Mexican community because we have a problem of obesity and bad nutrition. So with a sister-in-law of the owner of Google, we start doing also an experiment. How about if we put a lot of group of Mexicans that have this problem, and we tell them that if they keep eating healthy, they will live longer, that we show them how many calories they have to take, how many carbs, how many fruits, how many vegetables, etc., etc., etc. And we give them a diet, and we try to motivate them. To the other group, that was one group, to the other group, we just told them, you know, if you want a green card, you have to eat green. How come? You want to belong, you have to eat green. It's not that I'm giving you the green card. And you know how it happened? It happened because I was in a soccer game in Stanford. It was playing Colombia against United States. A Colombian guy hit very hard an American, and all the stadium started, the red card, the red card. And I started singing, the green card, everybody started singing with me. I mean, what you have to understand is that if you really want to make a law that works, if you really want to make that a policy operates, you have to understand the biology of a person. And you have to understand that sometimes biology works with culture. Sometimes it does, but sometimes our biology doesn't. I mean, sometimes I want to skip the line. Sometimes I don't want to pay taxes. I don't want to send my kids or my children to the war. But sometimes I should do it. And I should create a culture that could express my biology in a constructive way. Because the culture is a design created by a necessity, a need of evolution. And now today culture could hinder your evolution and change your biology, and your biology can change your culture. So, once we understand really who we are, we will see that it's much more complicated than what we thought. Just to finish with the example of the United States and the Mexican community, we understand that on the one hand, you have to have a symbol that if you want the green card, eat green, but that's not enough. That's very simple. Your brain is addicted to carbs. So we have to give you a diet that goes in that line. So Atkins and Dukan have worked better than any other because it has a lot of fat. But that's not it. Our brain is not done to have moderation. We have to create a diet that they don't tell you yes, but just a little bit. You cannot take more than the palm of your hand of chicken. I mean, I'm not going to measure the chicken all the time, first. And second, if you tell me moderation, I hate it. It's very complicated. You have to understand your brains. That's why they have created and written thousands of books of different diets. We are doing something wrong. So in this book, what we start trying to do is to understand just one line that I want that you remember. It's by Schopenhauer. You can do what you want, but you cannot want what you want. You can do what you will, but you cannot will what you will. What's behind the want? What's behind the will? 4 things. An instinct to survive, a need to reproduce, a need to understand sexuality, and to understand our brains, and a culture that forbids and that thinks that masturbation is a sin, it will have a problem in the long run. And a country and a culture that don't allow women to be different, and you dress all the same way, and goes against our nature, it's going to have problems in the long run. It has to do with the S of survive, the S of success, but there is another S, safetiness, protection, which also has to do with surprise. You need a law, you need a culture that define correctly property rights, that respect contracts, that create certainty. You have to make policies that go that way. And the last is success. So we make a shift to the Maslow triangle, and we incorporate a lot of variables in two ways. One, quantitative methods. Which countries, based on strong data of different sources, the Economist, the UN, whatever, but strong data, answer the questions that really could help your biology to express, invest in human capital, invest in survival, invest in a correct sexual orientation, invest in safetiness, invest in success. And on the other hand, with the method that Dr. Clotaire have done, we try to understand not what people say. This is the qualitative part, but to try to understand the imprint of the culture. What it means for a culture to be rich. What it means for a culture to be successful. Is good, is bad? What's really in the imprint of that culture? What does it mean? Because I just want to finish with this thing. I was born in Mexico, but I could have been born in London. My father and my mother are who they are, and I love them. Today, by the way, is the birthday of my mother. It's not a commercial, but congratulations. And that's reptilian, what I just mentioned. No? She's happy now. No, I'm just kidding. But I mean, the point is, I have a mother, a father. What would happen if my mother and my father were the Duke of York or of Islam or whatever? I have a religion. I have a sex. I'm man or I would be. All those things have a lot of determination of who I am. And the culture, the religion, and the values that my country gave me are strong imprints in my life. And my relation with authority, and my relation with risk, and my relation with love, and my relation with communication, it's very tough to understand. So it's very difficult to understand my biology, but also the important thing about my culture. So we create an equation that puts together biology and culture. And that was the missing point that we tried to solve in this book. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you both very much. So I read the book, and the idea of thinking about progress and kind of whether it's nations or cultures, and they're kind of intermixed in the book, in a different way is very interesting. In the book says the same phrase over and over again, which is this: the reptilian always wins. So Andres and both Clotaire have made references to it. But I'm interested in whether or not it's an all or nothing approach. Because in the examples that you give, they tend to be, France is like this and Singapore is like that. To what extent can a culture develop and improve? Because actually the interaction of who we are and where we are is massively important. So is it all or nothing, or actually is there a middle ground?
Yeah, well, if a culture tells you every morning you wake up, you take a gun and you shoot yourself in the head, that's not going to last very long, right? So in that way, the reptilian, you need to breathe, you need to eat, you need to have security, you need to have safety. So this is not a choice. You need to breathe. Biology has priorities. You cannot last very long without breathing. You can last longer without drinking, and you can last longer without eating. But that's the priority: air, liquid, food. So if you don't respect that, so when you say, is it yes or nothing, it depends. If you go against biology, then it's yes or nothing. There is no culture. Now, can you improve the biology? Yes, of course. Of course you can improve that, you see. So then that's the whole idea of the book, is if the reptilian always win, so make it win. If the culture, for me, it's a survival kit, inherited at birth, transmitted from one generation to another. How to survive in this environment. You know, if you're an Eskimo, it's not the same as if you are British, or if you are Indian or Chinese, it's different. Right? But there are some rules to survive in this environment. And so what are the rules that work? The one that respect the reptilian. That's what we say here. If the rules are against the reptilian, look what happened in China, one-child policy. Well, they're going to pay the price. Why? Because the tradition of the culture was that you need to have 3 children, 4 children to take care of the land, to help you, to take care of the old people and so on. Now, when you have only one child, the whole system is completely, and now you have a bunch of because they choose to have only boys, there's millions of boys that cannot find a girl.
And I mean, Andres, in the research that you did for the book, did you find examples of where you have seen cultures or countries make this transition, where they have maybe taken into account a greater sense of who we are as humans?
Well, actually, yes. I mean, that's where in the book we talk about crystallization. I mean, to change, for example, the ghost of, for example, just to talk about Mexico. In Mexico, I mean, the oil was sacred and belonged only to the nation. Who is the nation? I don't know. I mean, it's a property right, very bad defined. So, I mean, it have had with timing to change and to understand that property rights well defined and private and competition and all that kind of things could work. It's not sometimes so easy, but I mean, we found like a lot of countries that they have the crystallization that we share, that they create some things that it was very useful probably 200 years ago, but it's not useful anymore. And it's very difficult for some countries to move from one part to another. But it's pretty interesting what happened in Singapore. It's pretty interesting when you compare the 2 Germanys when they were divided, or the 2 Koreas, or the 2 Vietnams. And those are pretty examples that, first of all, your biology, coming back to your first question, no te determina. You are no te predestina. Es decir, you could change things. Your biology today changed your culture, and your culture today changed your biology. So based on that, depends a lot in what you try to do to change all the things and make a much more flexible and adaptive situation for your own country.
Okay, thank you. You also talk about creativity and sex quite a lot in the book. I'm not too sure anyone has ever talked about masturbation on the RSA stage, so well done for doing that. These topics feature much more than in other discourses about how we understand progress, whether it's economic, social, or ecological. What is it about these topics that are so important, creativity and sex, and why is it so important today?
You don't know? You have had problems. No, I'm just kidding. No, to be honest with you and Dr. Rapaille, what do you think?
Well, first of all, I think that Dr. Roemer was the first one to say, don't believe what you think. Don't believe what you think. I think this is already a very interesting situation. Then he did run several workshops on dangerous ideas. We need dangerous ideas. We need something to look at things completely different way. You know, Copernicus, Galilei, all these people were fantastic people. They just start looking at the world in a completely different way. So creativity is that. You need to be eccentric. Eccentric means outside of the center. You need to be different. You want to be different. You know, sometimes I say to people, if you want something to happen in your life, just make a step aside and walk into your neighbor's home rather than your home. Oh, what that? Well, you will see what happens. Just something different happens. What kills creativity is a routine. The fact that we don't question, we don't ask new things. You know, so this is what is interesting. Going around the world all the time, you have to adapt to very different situations, understand the different situations. So creativity is a must. You have to adapt all the time. You have to invent new solutions. You know, as you know, it's a cliche, but the world is so different today that all solutions don't apply. You cannot just keep looking at that the same way. By the way, I just hope that one day you will change your way of asking questions to the voters, to the people that vote in England, and that you will get it right. But it's clear that the pollsters, all those surveys, They have to change. If you let them still do the same mistake, something is wrong with the culture.
Andres, any thoughts?
Well, I go back to the line that you can do what you want, but you cannot want what you want. And for some people, Schopenhauer called this the will that we have, no? He called it will. Freud could have called it, and was pansexual in many ways, the libido. Elan vital for Bergson. I mean, there is something that it's in our genes, and Richard Dawkins have talked very well about it in this great book named The Selfish Gene. And there's also something in our culture that are these memes, and they want to get replicated. And the important thing is not that the reptilian always win in a destructive way. You have to express them in a way. You can go jogging, you can start swimming, you can start kissing a person, you can touch yourself, but you have anxiety. And if you have anxiety, you have to understand that you have to express your anxiety. If not, you will have cancer and you will kill yourself in a way. You have to express it. How do you express that thing? And how your culture tells you that this is forbidden and this is permitted, it's very different. Very quickly. You go to this cafeteria all around the world, Starbucks. They understand the reptilian. You need to feel special. I come there and I say, please, one decaf, latte, macchiato, double espresso. What's your name? Andres. They're asking my name. Oh, Andres. I feel special. Andres, they smile me. I feel that I... Then you ask, no, I want a cappuccino, please. You're different. I'm different. Everybody's the same, but they make us feel that we're different. If you go to a culture that everybody's dressing the same way, and that they cannot allow you to show your face, and that you cannot be outstanding, and be different, and be special, that's a need that we have. If we don't understand that, it won't work. In the consulate where I work, just quickly to tell you this about creativity, I'm sorry.
He can go on a little bit, I think, sometimes. So one more question, and then I'm going to open it out to the audience. So one of the, I suppose, challenges with looking at culture in this way, so the relationship between culture and biology, and then coming up with a number of indices, is that there is a risk of polarization, right? So you're polarizing different countries and or cultures against each other. There has been a fair amount of press and some criticism about this approach. Do you think that's justified? Or do you think that there is some fear in a kind of oversimplification of quite a complicated topic? I mean,
it's provocative, and we know it. When the people that criticize us put that in the same category of Copernic, Galilei, Spinoza, and Kierkegaard, I'm very happy. Thank you, guys. Thank you. I didn't know I was in the same league as these great thinkers. But the point that we have is that a lot of people are just so cortex. They have a hard time to accept that there are some other reason why things change or don't change, And that's why they look at us and they say, no. Okay, well, the reality for me is very simple. When people move with their feet, when they move to one place to another, why? You can try to convince them to go to Venezuela today. I don't know any young guy with an MBA that want to go to Venezuela. Why? Why is that? No? Now, a lot of people want to go to Singapore, to Switzerland, to Sweden, why? You see, so if you just look at the numbers, and how do you explain that? You see, and so the intellectual, the people that are just thinking that the cortex is enough, they say, oh yeah, but we can change it, okay, do it. How come it doesn't work? Okay. You see, that's my point. So this is provocative because they read the book, and if they're honest with themselves, they understand they are wrong.
Okay. On that note, so if you would like to ask a question, if you just put your hand up, please. So if we could take a question down here, and then the two hands up at the back. We'll take a round of three, and then we'll ask you to answer.
Thank you. You mentioned at one point that culture is a survival kit. Yeah. You also said that the reptilian part of the brain is about survival, but these don't always necessarily match up. You also mentioned at another stage that the culture in China is the tradition of having 2 or 3 children, and then you talked about the one-child policy. You seem to be using culture and politics sometimes interchangeably and other times not. So can you be a little bit clearer? what is the difference between culture and politics? Where does one end and the other begin?
Okay, thank you. We'll just take another couple of questions and take them as a bank. So there's this gentleman here. Oh, sorry, there's a microphone at the back first. Yeah, young lady, yeah.
Thank you.
Hold on, if we just take that question at the back. Sorry, thank you.
You talked about culture as a survival kit that we inherit at birth. I've often thought that each generation's role is to kind of update that kit for itself. But I'm wondering whether a lot of the examples you've given are very relevant to us in this room because we have the privilege of being able to have the kind of life where we can choose to move countries if we want to. And I'm wondering what both of the panelists think might be the challenges in trying to update that kit for everybody. So, you know, I guess what I'm asking is, how do they think a culture should address inequality to be effective and take into account the biology?
Lovely, thank you. And I think there was just one more question. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. I mean, you have taken a very complex question, and have you helped making it a little less complex? Perhaps not. First of all, you talk of your cultures, and while cultures are some advanced, some don't advance, but you talk most of the time. You talk to the individual problems. Let's discuss also collective. Now, on the collective issue, all societies have begun with the primitive beginnings. But some societies have progressed faster than others. And so much so that they look so different now. We need to understand what is it that allows some societies to progress and others not. And I'd like you to say something about that. And for me, I feel, I'll give you a suggestion. I think societies which are better at generating knowledge, they progress better. It's another matter now what ingredients are needed to make society more creative, innovative, and generative of knowledge. So the question will be this, that is it not the real difference between the cultures, their power to create knowledge? Thank you.
Lovely, thank you very much. So if we could just keep our answers short and sweet so that we've got some more time for questions. So there's a question about culture and politics. Can we be clear about the definition? Where does one start and where does one end? Andres, do you want to take that question?
Well, I think that politics is an expression of your culture. And it's I mean, when we talk about survive, safe and success, in the quantitative part, we talk a lot about politics, about what institutional arrangements do you have. And on the cultural part, we talk about which beliefs do you have. For example, what does it mean for your authority and your relation with a participation and with the relation with freedom and with the relation of etc. And in the quantitative part, we really talk about institutions, about one of our studies was to separate, for example, that was a pretty interesting thing, the common law system versus the statutory system. Your law, it really make a difference in the world. I mean, the institutions, it's much more reptilian. In countries like France or like Mexico or like Spain, where the laws are made through Congress and it's very difficult to change them, are very different than your country where, if you're from here, I'm sorry, I don't know, from the Commonwealth, that you could really have like a kind of a Darwinian war that if one law is not efficient, then you could have jurisprudence here and then it will appear another law. And that will make it much more flexible. So to answer your question, it's politics, it's an expression of culture.
Okay, thank you, Andres. And then there was a question about in each generation's role, to an extent, is to update its culture. And you know, this topic is very useful for the country and the culture that we're sitting in at the moment. But the challenge would be to update the kit for everybody. How could that work, Clotaire?
What do you mean everybody? Every different generation or different cultures?
I think probably around the world.
Equality.
Was that?
It was really from a point of view of if we're raising, how can we raise everybody up to say a reasonable standard of living without exhausting the resources of the planet? That would be an example. So
Can you
so how could we raise the aspirations and the progress of everyone within the confines of the planets and not just particular countries?
Well, first of all, we did some work recently on what we call the millennial, and we went around the world to try to understand how this new species, you know, the kids that were born with a cell phone in their hands, how this new species function and react, and you know, what is the future? And I can tell you for the first time in my life, I've done this kind of work for almost half a century now, and I always found very much differences from one culture to another, of course. Then that's the theme of my book, the Culture Code. But for the first time in my life, I found the same functioning, the same structure among all these kids from you know, Mexico, Sao Paulo, Korea, Shanghai, India, the same. And so they suddenly there is something in common that is imposed by technology. And the key elements for me, for example, are the notion of time, and then the notion of space. So the notion of time is that when you belong to this new generation, the time is the next now. You know, the definition is I text, therefore I am. I text, and then you have to answer the text right away. I mean, if you wait until tomorrow, then, oh, you don't like me, you don't love me, you hate me, what's wrong with that? You see, so the pressure, the anxiety is absolutely incredible. Then the second element that they have in common is that they're not here. They're not here. They're somewhere else, but not here. So, you know, so it's very interesting. I love these kids because usually when I have, there are children in a plane make a lot of noise. Today, they don't make any noise. They're not here. They're not here. They are. So you see, so what is happening for me that is very interesting is that there is a global code, there is a global dimension happening today that is brought by technology that might change a lot of way the culture, the people function. You know, I've done work for Match.com, you know, Match.com, the internet and things. They all use it around the world, from Mexico to Sao Paulo to Shanghai, and they all know that the internet is the best place to lie.
So, Clotaire, if I just go back to the question, does that mean, is your answer that you believe the millennials and technology will develop their own set of criteria based on this reptilian always winning, which means that all cultures will be able to progress in the next kind of couple of centuries?
Not, you know, I wish all culture will be able to progress, but I'm not sure of that. Some culture can disappear. And that did happen in the past. If you read a little bit about history, you know some culture can disappear. But what is happening today, they're connected. There's an incredible connection between this. And so they know about other cultures. And they know how other cultures address the reptilian needs. You know? And so if suddenly there's a level of awareness that, you know, in Saudi Arabia, they have awareness. They know that things are different in other cultures. And so then there's a difference between the, you know, what you're aware of, your expectation, and your reality. And that is a very dynamic, if you want, so for change. Okay. If there's a big difference between what I want and what I can have, then I'm going to do something about it. You see? And the technology is changing this notion of awareness. They're aware, they know things, how things are going. Okay,
thank you. And then the last question was around how some cultures are progressing faster than others. And the gentleman would like to know, you know, why is this happening? And is the integration of knowledge a potential factor?
Well, I think actually that the two last questions are very correlated and they are great questions. I mean, we don't come to this world with a blank slate, not biological, no cultural, no in any ways. So here is where some cultures could help you to evolve. And it has to do, of course, with equality, of course, to different generations, and of course, with knowledge. Our first variable, because we evaluate 71 countries, and we didn't have the time to show you some slides of the questions that we make to all these cultures. However, the most important variable all across the cultures has to do with knowledge and education. That's for sure. The big question is what kind of education. Sometimes it's better not to, if you're going to learn that we come from Adam and Eva and you believe in creationism. So it's better not to go to that school. But in the systems, in the first S that we put, the correlation of how much a country invests in an education that teaches you not what to learn, but how to learn, how to be related with authority, how to question the status quo, how to see a professor versus you, how not to believe everything you think, how to have a critical thinking. It's extremely correlated with the formation of knowledge. Actually, we like it very much aligned by Picasso that says that the worst enemy of creativity is good taste. Okay. And in terms of equality, just to tell you this, because this is very important, this is where culture comes. Your culture could tell you, okay, we have to make that everybody is respected and that human rights are respected for everybody. We have to create a law that really actually do not punish much more the people of this color or of this social class or that don't have money, or we have to open a new law that could actually help to have all the creativity and all the competition and all these things make possible. So of course, this is the root. You have to understand the needs of everybody, because if not, you will make some laws, but there will be a resentment. And this is pretty important.
So we've got another time for a couple more questions. So there's a gentleman down here, Abby. There's a question in the corner, and then we'll take one here.
Given what you were saying, Clotaire, about education and technology, does it suggest that as technology is bringing the millennial closer together, that education policies in the different countries should also become more closely aligned than they currently are?
Between the countries? Mm-hmm. Okay. I'll repeat it. Yeah. I'll repeat it for you. If we just take the other question just in this corner.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, just interested, despite the rise of globalization and internet technology, why is it we're seeing such a massive rise of nationalism around Europe, around the world, and extremism in the Middle East, etc.? I just wondered how that relates to the issues of culture.
Okay, lovely, thank you. And then there's a question down here.
My question is, how did both of you get together? And why didn't you refer at all to the original culture of Mexico and the United States?
Okay, we'll come on to that. So the first question was about the relationship between education and technology. Yeah. And the question is, given that the millennials are more increasingly connected, should education policy across different countries be more integrated?
Yeah, it happened that we did the work on what is higher education and education worldwide today. So I have, a lot of interest in this subject. The key element is that education is changing completely. And sorry to say that, but it's not about knowledge anymore. Forget it. It's not about knowing different things. All the knowledge is available. Infinite knowledge is available. So you're not going to go to Oxford, Cambridge, Harvard, Princeton to get knowledge, because you can have it anywhere. But the reptilian brain is, what do you need to survive? And you need connections. The key purpose of higher education today, why people go to Oxford, and we did the work in Oxford, we went to Georgetown University in Washington, what do people go to these places? To be connected with other members of the tribe. That's what they need, because they know that when they're connected, when they belong to this tribe, their chances for success, for survival, for sex, because they might marry one member of the tribe, are a lot higher. And so we can tell you, in India, in China, what people want is connection. They want to belong to this connection. So that's why the purpose to have, for example, a Harvard club in New York is very important. People go there and get together and have a drink. And so the connection is the key element. Now, of course, there is a knowledge behind that, but it is not the priority. The reptilian always win. You want to be connected, and then after that, you can access to the knowledge more. One thing that I found very difficult to create is character. Actually, one of the key elements for me in education is not just knowledge, is not just connection, is building the character. And I didn't see many character professors. And that is missing. And in order to move up, I think we need to create this dimension of people that help you to develop your character.
Lovely, thank you. And then the other question was about given globalization, why are we seeing a rise in fascism and extremism around Europe and around the world? Clotaire?
Say that again.
So given globalization,
Yeah.
do you have any thoughts on why we've seen an increase in extremism and fascism,
Yeah.
right-wing thoughts in Europe?
Okay, we know that breakthrough in technology sometimes breaks some negative side, not just positive side. We know that. And one of the results today of what we can observe in the world is what I call fragmentation. We are moving into a fragmentation of the world, not center, not multi-center, not multipolar, just a fragmentation. And I'm preparing a new book, of course. I'm working to a new book, and it's called the Tribe Code. The Tribe Code is that we are moving toward becoming more tribal. We're going to belong to several tribes. And so this notion of tribe is what is going to really change the world. Now, some tribes go back to medieval times. And so they suddenly go back to some rules that were the rules of the tribe in medieval times. So actually the world is not moving toward progress in a classic way. We're not going better, some moving backward. And so because of this fragmentation and this tribalization of the world, some old tribe going back to medieval time are coming back. Okay. And that's why we see the resurgence of fascism, extremism, all the things that we can see today. And
so a huge question, so you're going to have to be very brief. Firstly, on how did you meet, but that's also in the book, so you can read about that. But there was a question about addressing the relationship between the US and Mexico. And that's with the intricacies of that relationship. Why hasn't that?
Do you want that I be brief?
In 2 minutes.
If you don't want to. No,
in 2 minutes.
Please.
No,
what's your perspective?
Yeah. The relationship between Mexico and the US, I like to make a joke. All right. If you, all the southern part of the US, every city is Los Angeles, San Francisco, this is Mexican, right? So I don't think we have immigration. We have reconquista, which means they're just going back to, I'm just kidding, but, but there is a strong relationship. You see, just to give you an example about culture, cowboys, you all know John Wayne, you see the saddle of John Wayne, the hat of John Wayne, all that comes from the Arabs. Yes, it comes from the Arabs. Why? Because the Arabs were occupying Spain, the Spanish went into Central America, and then they occupied all Texas. And so the saddle that you have is an Arab saddle. The boots that they have is Arab boots. I mean, all that comes, so you see the connection between culture, the influence from one culture to another. So I believe that there is a lot of things, there are more things in common. And I know I'm going to be provocative here, but
you have 1 minute to be provocative.
More things in common between the Mexican and the American than between the American and the Canadian.
Well, okay. Mexico, just to be it's very complicated, the relation, but it's better than ever in many ways. We have every minute $1 billion of exchange. We're the biggest partners in the region, and today the Mexican, there are many topics, but just to make very briefly and answer you, we have an issue of environment, of migration, of drugs, and of trade, and of education, and of human rights. So in each topic we're working together, but we're understanding in a reptilian way that if we become partners and we have better understanding of each other, we will have much more means to evolve and survive. And of course, that's what both presidents now are working. And I can talk to you about specific problems, but things are doing in the correct way, in that way.
So we're going to have to wrap up because we run out of time. I'd like to thank both Clotaire and Andres for coming. The book is available outside if you'd like a signed copy, since they're going to be hanging around. Thank you very much for attending our talk today.